Welcome back to the Building Bigger Lives podcast. Again, Michael Regan along with Kathryn Pedersen. Today, we're going to dig into a topic that is an expansion of an episode we did looking at the 4 roles of a leader. And when we did that episode, we recognized that one of those roles probably deserved a little bit greater zoom, a little bit more focus on that role, a little more application from that role. And so I hope today we're going to get to look at the role of the trainer, that person who is responsible in their leadership role to train others on systems and processes. So we'll take a deep dive into the mindset, the skill set, and some of the tool sets of the trainer. But before I unpack those, let me bring my friend Kathryn back into the frame. Nice to see you today, Kathryn.
Yeah, good to see you too, Michael. And you understand these so well. And when we had the last episode, we just decided let's just dig into these a little bit more because we covered some of the bigger picture. So it'll be fun to, as I said, get down into the weeds, let's call it.
All right. Well, sometimes that's a good thing to do because they say the devil is in the details, and I think if we let's zoom out for a moment and just take a look at the
Yeah.
framework because some of our audience might not have listened to that prior episode, and this might encourage them to go back and do that. And so I'm going to define the 4 roles of a leader, and then we'll zoom back in on the trainer. So clearly, that's going to be one role of the leader, and typically the trainer is going to be the person who has a very specific skill set and a very specific agenda, meaning they are responsible to take this experience and skill they have and show others how to do it following very specific steps or instructions. So think of this person, you've been in training scenarios before. I mean, we've talked about this in context. I'm sure in mortgage lending, you've been through some really good training before. What's a characteristic of a really good trainer? When you've been with someone, when do you say they did a great job?
First, that they go slow enough that you can follow, but they also do frequent check-ins of, hey, did you get what I said? Or, hey, even if it's in a group setting, hey, can I get a thumbs up that you understood that last section? Because I want to make sure you get that before we move to the next.
Okay, that's really good advice. So if you're out there and you know part of your role as a leader is to be responsible for training, there's a tip. Make sure you go at a pace that your followers can handle and check in with them from time to time. Make sure they're catching the details as you're laying them out in front of them. All right, let's rotate in the model a little bit then. Another role of the leader is often the manager. And sometimes those get confusing because that's a title that we hear, but I'm speaking more of the role here. And the role of the manager is a little bit like the role of the trainer in that also they have an agenda, meaning whether it's a corporate structure where they're being told this is exactly what we need you to manage at a regional level or at a branch level or at a local level. That could be one way the agenda is drawn, or they, in the autonomy they have within that environment, they may have a very specific vision around that group and they want to manage to the agenda that they've created. The difference is, unlike the trainer, where they have the agenda and the skill set, the manager doesn't always have to have the skill set. Often they're responsible for managing people with very different skill sets. So, in a large enough environment, so let's use a regional leader in the real estate or the housing industry that we live in. They're going to often have sales professionals that they manage. They're going to have operational professionals that they manage. They're going to maybe have someone that's managing the finances and the accounting pieces that go with that. They may have some facilities management, depending upon the type of environment that they work
Mm.
in. There could be lots of skills involved that they don't necessarily have, but they're still responsible to lead. So again, they're going to leverage the skill set of the other person to keep the agenda that they have. We'll keep going around. A third category that we discussed in that episode was the role of the coach. And the coach is going to not only have clarity over deferring to the other person's skill set, but also let that other person set the agenda. So a coach is going to be available, and that version of a leader comes out when someone says, I need help. I know clearly what I want. I know, how to, I think I even know how to get there, but I'm constantly getting distracted or I'm constantly getting discouraged or I'm still figuring things out, but I need someone to keep me motivated to keep trying, keep figuring, keep going. So again, the other person has a skill, the other person has an agenda, and they hire a coach to really keep them on that mission and not give up. The fourth category of the leader we talked about was more of an advisor. This person might also allow that other person to set the agenda. But once again, we're coming back around. We want to tap into their experience with this. They maybe have done this before. They maybe have led others to do this before, and we want to learn from them. So we might seek the advisor role from our leader when we want to say, how would you do this? Or how did you do this? Or if I'm going to do this, what advice do you have for me? So those may sound very nuanced when we overview all four of them, because most leaders I know, they move in and
Mhm.
out of those four roles all the time. And I think you've experienced that as well. So maybe again, give me a couple of examples now that I've rotated around. What would be an example of a really great manager experience that you've had, just to contrast that from the trainer?
So I always think of a manager as saying, "Hey, here's some things that I need you to work on, and here's some little adjustments that you can make," and also be there to say, "Hey, I'm trying to figure out how to do this. What are some things that I can do to move into that?" And they might come back and say, "Hey, I told you that your P&L needs to be at this point. How are you coming with that?" And if not, they might have to start to set some more deep goals and guidelines for you.
Those are great examples, Catherine. And I hope the audience heard that. They are setting the agenda. This is what I need from you. This is what I'm expecting from you. These are the targets that I'm giving you, but they're counting on you to do the work. They're not doing the work
Mhm.
for you. And they may
Mhm.
not even specifically do your job. They need you to do your job because you're contributing to this. That's great. That's a great example. All right. So I'm going to skip over the coach one because that could sound a little bit self-serving given our relationship. I want to ask about the advisor. Where have you seen a great example of an advisor, and what would that look like to someone?
Yeah, I think that that might look like, hey, and let's say it's even outside of their specific company, but they're going and saying, "Hey, here's some things that I'm thinking. What do you think? What's your opinion?" And so there's like this. It almost feels like like that. I kind of think of it, an advisor and a mentor similarly, in the roles.
Yeah, they do have some similarities, although they're not mutually inclusive in every way, because you also have a really great group of professionals that are your peers that you also meet with on a regular basis. So a peer group can also serve in an advisor role because they have some experience that is similar to yours, but they might have had a different version of it, and you want to access their
Mm-hmm.
experience. What did you learn? So yeah, mentor, maybe someone who's gone before you, a peer group, someone who's maybe walking down the road with you. But these folks play the role of advisor, and those are really great examples. So let's go back to the topic today, bring it all the way back around to the trainer. When we look, if you, let's speak directly to those of you who are responsible for these four roles within the organization that you lead, and you recognize from time to time you need to train. One of the things I think is really critical for the version of you to come out, if you're going to really excel in this area, is you have to be comfortable designing systems and frameworks. You can't just train based on your own verbal ability to talk about it. You have to be able to demonstrate it. You have to be able to create literal content that you can share with other folks. Sometimes that's on a PowerPoint, sometimes that's maybe documentation, maybe you've even been creative and come up with something like you've created a, an maybe on your web portal, you've got a web page where you're going to, keep a detail of everything you're training on that they can follow. There's lots of different ways to systematize, but that's going to be a key ingredient. And I know that folks understand that when you say it, but it's amazing how many times I hear about a leader going into a training mode and they don't have systems and they don't have frameworks. Have you ever been trained by someone who's just trying to tell you all about it, but they can't show you how to do it?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that there's a lot of times where, because if somebody hasn't actually done the job that you're doing, and then they come in and say, "Hey, here's the way to do it." There's a lot of times that I think, oh my gosh, they might need someone else to be the trainer for them because they just don't have the right examples. They don't have the right pieces and parts to make the training effective. And then you end up as being the trainee kind of saying, "Hey, this is difficult to listen to because this isn't how it actually works," because they don't have the systems that they need to execute this thing that they're training on.
So this happens so often, and this is why we wanted to unpack this. So let's get to the heart of today's episode. Many
Hmm.
times in the housing industry, both on the real estate side and the mortgage lending side, you will find someone who at some point is hired on the operations side or on the sales side who is now being promoted into some role of leadership. They may get a manager title, but more importantly, they have a leadership role. They're leading a small group, they're leading a team,
Hmm.
they're leading a branch, maybe leading several branches. And what will happen is they do have that experience and they do have those skills. But just because those are true doesn't mean they're really great at training others on how to follow it. It's a new
Hmm.
skill set. So when I said the mindset, the skill set, and the tool set, I think the first piece I'd like us to take away is the one mindset you need if this is going to be you, if you're going to be elevated into that role, is I have to be willing to learn a new way of teaching others how to do what I already know how to do. In other words, don't be a one trick pony. Don't think, oh, just follow my lead, just do what I do. That is a way to train others, but maybe not the most effective way that most people learn.
Hmm.
Someone might learn that way. You might get fooled into thinking that, oh, well, Kathryn followed my lead. I never needed to give her any, training tools. I never needed to document this for her. Well, that's because maybe Kathryn connected with your style naturally, but what about those folks who don't and they still need to get
Hmm.
trained? So if you can embrace the mindset that says, I might need to learn a different way, then a skill that you get to develop from that is the ability to articulate that, if not demonstrate that in a different way. And that might require you to have some new tools. I think frameworks are a great tool for people to develop as leaders. Frameworks are those things that you see. You've seen me do this in a room. People go up to a whiteboard and they just draw something really simple. It could be a line and they're going to hash up the line. It could be a box and they're going to break it into quadrants. It could be a sphere and they're going to, there's lots of different ways to create frameworks, but frameworks are excellent visual tools for that trainer
Hmm.
to find out, am I connecting with my audience in a different way? So let's pause there because you've seen some of this and you don't have to use me as the example, but have you seen some illustrations where those leaders are developing that skill of designing frameworks? And what does that look like?
Yeah, so I teach these United Way classes, and they had a consultant who is retired, but she volunteers with the United Way, and she was basically a teacher evaluator. So she has been working with me for a long time to say, hey, here's some ways to make what you're getting across more effective to the student. So
Mm,
one of those things is providing those. So for example, we have a chart that shows the parts of a credit score and how a credit score is made up. It's a pie chart. And so we've added a lot of visual tools to help out, which if it was just me, I would be like, great, I'm training people verbally and that's all I need to do. And that's one of the pieces that she added into our trainings. And we are getting great feedback from those.
excellent choice. That I hope folks can visualize what you just described because that's really what we're talking about. Another skill that someone might need to develop if they're going to train, and I've seen this before, is they know they need to put that imagery into a PowerPoint, but they're not really good at building a PowerPoint.
Hmm.
Well, congratulations, folks. Welcome to the world of AI. You've got now some
Yeah.
resources that will massively accelerate your ability to implement these. Look, you may never learn the skills to master presentation slides, but even your ability to be better at them allows you as a trainer to connect words and pictures, which is a valuable skill to be able to develop as a trainer. So I hope that that's another one. A third that seems like that. So I said frameworks are one. I'm using visual presentations as a second. A third is, how many times do you run into a trainer who's not really gifted at using Excel or some version of a spreadsheet? And yet that could be critical in your ability to help create clarity over how information flows through a complexity of different scenarios. It's another tool that is available to you, but if you don't have the skill to design it, you might skip it and just talk a lot about it. And I'm telling you that talking about
Mhm.
numbers or data is a lot different than creating the visual clarity of how data flows. So, all these things as a trainer are available to you. Can you think of any others that maybe off the top of your head, either you're really gifted at using as a trainer or that you've seen others that are gifted at using? Any other skills or tools that you'd like to highlight?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things we've added into the classes. I resisted, I will tell you. It was difficult to convince me, but I added it and now I'm happy about it.
Mm,
Is letting people kind of disseminate the information. So we'll stop and say, hey, write down three things from what we've gone through that you want to implement in your own business. Or
mm,
at the end of the class, what was the most useful bit of information that you learned about credit today? And if they can do that and stop and write that down, regardless of what we do with that information, it's going to cement it in their mind.
mm,
The other thing is chatting with, like, we might say, hey, I'm going to stop for a minute and you decide which credit card debt payoff method is best for you. Chat with your neighbor and discuss which one you like the most. And that's how people retain the information. And we get so focused on getting the information out that sometimes we forget that the whole goal is to actually make sure that they're retaining the information, not just hearing the information.
Really well said. Really well said. Okay. I think both of us gravitated toward examples that would be live in a real room with real people. But sometimes, just like we're recording this episode of the podcast, your training might happen on a Zoom or a Teams platform. And so there's a different set of skills, tools, and frameworks that you might need there. So, again, the mindset we would start with is okay, I can learn how to use this online tool set that is available to me. And that might allow me to use, like I know on our Zoom format, for instance, we can create a little breakout room when we need to. It's not the same as doing it live, but it
Mhm.
gives you some experience to take a room full of people on Zoom and break them into smaller groups. You can use a chat function over there so that you have some dialogue going where people can raise their hands and ask questions. These are tools that are available to you. So again, if you're a responsible for the role of a trainer and you're going to be doing this online, might be a good time to develop the mindset of I need to learn how these tools work so that I can develop new skills, skills that allow me to weave those in, which goes back to your examples. It helps connect better with the information because not everybody learns the same way, not everybody learns at the same pace. And your job as a trainer is often, I mean, I guess it's possible that, if this was, SEALs training, you're trying to eliminate the weak links, but, we're not Navy SEALs. Most of us are trying to elevate the skill set of other folks and their ultimate performance, which means you've got to really have the empathy to realize, oh my gosh, Michael's not getting it. I need to help connect with him. And that might mean using how to use these, learning how to use these. So, give me any examples you've seen, Kathryn. So, if someone's doing online training rather than in person training, what are some skills or tools that you've seen that are helpful for that trainer?
I think a lot of the like, hey, put this in the chat. Like, hey, tell me what city you're in. Everybody uses that at the beginning of one. Or, but also partway through, hey, now I know you know how to use it. So tell me, do you guys think it's A, B, or C? And you'll have people answer questions in that. So I think that can sometimes be helpful. Plus, it's good as a trainer because you get a little bit more feedback as far as am I talking into a computer and no one is listening, or are there actual people out there? So I can think it can
Yeah.
keep people engaged and also help them learn.
That's really good because if, as a trainer, you're just monologuing and you're not doing that,
Mhm.
imagine that experience. I think I can visualize what that's like. I'm imagining if I'm the trainer, I'm autopiloting this thing. I'm not really emotionally engaged. And if I'm the participant, I'm probably rating this very low. Like, this is not helpful to me at all. You could have just had an
Mhm.
AI bot run this training because
Yeah.
I didn't interact with this person at all. So good for you to recognize that those are skills. Another couple of things that matter, and these are just technical. I mean, you can see Kathryn and I recording today. We're on very real microphones. Your voice matters. And so if you're in a room, you need to make sure your voice projects. If you're online, you need to make sure your voice is being picked up by something that is clear and everyone can connect with. So a good microphone matters. A good camera is going to matter as well. Good lighting matters as well. Some folks get all hung up on, oh, I don't like the way I look on camera. I- I've gotten over that because this is also the way I look in real life. So if we turn the camera off, this is who you're going to see. If I really don't like it, maybe what I need to do is, okay, maybe work a little harder to show up, a little bit better prepared. And so if as a trainer that really matters to you, how you look and how you show up, then take some ownership over that. You have an opportunity to do something about that. But the technical pieces really do matter. So the microphone, the lighting, the camera, all those things matter. If you're going to use a slide deck in a virtual presentation rather than in a live room, you've also got to develop some skill on how to toggle between those, because the shared screen on your end as a presenter often looks different than what it looks like for the person watching. And if you make a mistake, you might find out you're showing them the wrong screen. And all of a sudden, you're showing them all kinds of things that are on your desktop, and everybody's confused. That'll make you feel a little bit underprepared, and it might lose some credibility with someone in the room
Mhm.
who thinks, oh, so this is the person training me, and they can't even put their slide deck into play. Those are skills that you can develop and practice. So those are all areas. And any closing thoughts on this one, Kathryn? Because I don't want to rattle off example after example. Does this feel like we helped people connect a little bit better if they have a leadership role as a trainer?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's good to at least make sure that we're all developing our skills to train other people and the tools that we're using to do that. And even if you're getting really good feedback, it doesn't mean that you can't improve some little things to make your training more effective. And so look at those, some pieces and parts that you might not already be doing in your business.
That's a great place to button down this episode. So this will be the last takeaway is anytime you are responsible for your role as a trainer. So whether you're live, whether you're virtual, make sure you give your audience an opportunity to provide some feedback. It could be a short survey. It could be one-on-one follow-ups that you do afterwards. There's several different ways to accomplish this, but without that feedback, to your point, even if you're really good, I mean, you might literally be naturally gifted at this. You can always learn something new because it's really not about you, it's about the other person. The whole point of the training is to disseminate information to a larger audience and help lift them up to their ability to execute better. Otherwise, why hire a trainer? And so, in your case, as a leader, you're going to play that role from time to time. You're going to need to show your team how to do something new. So, please bring in those systems and those frameworks, develop the mindset, skill set, and tool set that these are opportunities for you to get better as a leader and ultimately embrace that aspect of your role. If from time to time you're over your skis, there's a topic that you're just not the right person to do the training on, it's also okay to delegate. That's one of the core values of a leader is their ability to delegate. And you might need to
Mhm.
bring someone in from the outside or elevate someone from the team to do the training on this topic because they're really the expert. Absolutely fine if you do that. But that deference shows, I think, a lot of your emotional intelligence as a leader when you do that. What you don't want to feel like is that, oh my gosh, they hired me to be the leader, or I volunteered to be the leader because I launched this company, and therefore I've got to do all the training, I've got to do all the managing, I've got to do all the coaching, and I've got to do all the advising. The truth is, all four of those areas are opportunities for you to grow. But from time to time, you might want to delegate that to an outsider who can come in and knock it out of the park. Captain, thanks for joining me on this episode today. It was fun to zoom in on this one a little bit and dig into the topic. I hope you and I connected with someone. And if they're is a listener out there today thinking, I needed that. I do have a responsibility in my role as a leader to do some training. I hope you grabbed something. And if you notice that it's something that someone in your team could benefit from, share it with them as well. We love it when you share our episodes with folks that you care about. That's how we get new followers and new listeners, and they too might share it with someone else. And before you know it, we're having some impact. And that's the whole goal of building bigger lives, impacting you so you can impact others. We hope to see you on an episode very soon.